This is a reading, and it's exactly what it says. The actors and actresses will be reading from the script. There's no action involved. As you can see in the cast, we have real professionals here, wonderful people who will basically be doing a cold reading. We have not had a chance to rehearse together. So we are looking forward to your help and attention, and let the play begin. Act 1, Scene 1, July 1826. Renaud and Jason are walking down Slave Lane.
Oh, there it is.
Yes, I see it. Slave Lane. Oh,
What are you laughing at?
well, what else? Just think about it for a minute. Who in the world is that sign for?
Who is it for?
Yeah, Slave Lane. Is it for the slaves to live here so they'll know their place? I thought it was against the law for slaves to know how to read.
That's right. Still, there's always a possibility some can read. Madam Hemmings was taught to read by President Jefferson. We taught you how to read.
I know, and I will forever be grateful to you and your father for that. Anyway, here we are at Slave Lane. Ugh.
Can you imagine what it feels like to have been stolen from your homeland, packed into the bottom of a ship, sailing on seas for months, then landing on foreign soils, only to be sold to the highest bidder?
Not really. It must have been hard on them, however. They weren't needed to work the land.
That's no excuse.
Oh, blimey, folks. It's business. Some people are making a lot of money from it.
Yeah, a great deal of money.
Well, if my family's been fortunate enough to transport a cargo of slaves, do you think I would be here with you right now?
What?
No, sir. Certainly wouldn't be here trying to make an honest shilling. Wish I'd have been so lucky.
Well, you dirty little...
Hold on there for a minute.
You really don't see anything wrong with stealing innocent people from their homeland, then selling them to the highest bidder who intended them to work to death for nothing, do you?
Hold on there just a minute. All I meant was, well, I probably wouldn't have grown up on the streets of London begging for food if we'd had a chance at...
You ought to be glad my father took pity on you and took you in when we were in London. You were a skinny, dirty little blonde-haired pitiful sight begging for a piece of bread.
I know, and I will always be grateful to you and your father for that. You're the only family I've ever known. It's just
that you are a street urchin, and that's all you'll ever
Now,
be.
stop it, Renaud. I've always thought of you as the brother I never had. If I'd had some of that slave trade money today, I'd share every bit of it with you.
You filthy little tramp. A brother? Never. What an insult.
Forgive me. Please forgive me. Oh, now look what you've done.
I'm sorry. There's no way for me to change you. You'll always be a poor immigrant beggar. Come on, let's hurry. There's a big cloud overhead, and I want to get to her cabin before it rains.
Right. Now, she said to keep walking until you see a bend in the road. That funeral service went on much too long. Guess they had a lot to say. He was quite a man, wasn't he?
I guess so.
What a list that was. Let's see how much of it I can remember.
Who cares? Hurry.
Well, don't worry. I can walk and talk at the same time. Now, let me see. He was born in 1743, right?
Who?
Thomas Jefferson. Who else have we been talking about?
You've been talking
Yeah, well,
about.
he married Martha Wales Skelton in 1772.
Right.
Helped write the Declaration of Independence in 1776, for which I may never forget. Became their governor in 1779. His poor wife died in 85. The same year, he was appointed Minister of France and then sent to Paris.
Correct.
Became Secretary of State in 89, elected Vice President in 96, elected President in 1800. 19 years later, he founded the University of Virginia.
And here we are today, July of 1826, at his funeral. You've learned a lot today.
Yes, it's hard to believe that one person could have done so many things in just one life.
What exactly do you mean?
Remember they said he helped design and construct that beautiful place we visited this morning?
Oh, you mean Monticello?
Yes, he was a farmer, inventor, mathematician, designed furniture. Seems impossible.
Why would they lie about him?
Oh, I didn't say they were lying. Didn't you find it hard to believe all the beautiful things they gave him credit for?
Jason, you're getting on my nerves. I barely listened to what they had to say.
What?
You heard me. Perhaps it's because I knew him when he was alive. You learned about him today for the first time. Sometimes listening to someone else talk about the life of a person after he's left this world sounds better than the life that really was when he was alive.
Well, you may be right. Anyway, you knew the man and I did not.
Stop. There's the oak tree that Miss Martha told us to look for. Now the road should turn to the right after... Oh, Father in heaven.
What?
Look. What is that thing in front of us?
Oh, you mean that cabin? Well, that must be it, Sally's cabin. Interesting. I thought she said she had a room next to his in the big house. I guess they didn't know about this, huh?
Sacre bleu. I've never seen a slave's cabin look like that. Must have been his hideaway.
Well, you may be right. This place set in the middle of these dogwood trees is the one he finished. It's certainly not like the mansion on top of the little mountain in Monticello.
Suppose she won't see us. Suppose she doesn't recognize me. Suppose I...
Stop it! Suppose. What's the matter with you? I thought you were hoping she wouldn't know you after all.
After all, it's been a very long time since last I saw her.
Well, how do you expect her to recognize you? We've been together the last 12 years and you've changed. I've changed. Everything changes.
I know, but I want to see her, but I'm afraid.
Afraid of what?
Afraid my heart will not be able to take it. Afraid she won't tell us her story. Afraid I won't be able to compose myself and act like a newspaper man. I'm afraid...
Oh, stop it! Pull yourself together. Hold on just for a minute. Ah, now I see you're still in love with a person you met over 30 years ago. Now, this is insane.
I wonder if she looks the same.
After 30 some odd years.
Oh, I was dazzled by her beauty.
My friend, I hope for your sake she'll be all you remember her to be.
No matter. Brush off the dust off your clothing. Here, turn around. Let me look at you.
Look, now leave me alone. I'm not going in to see someone I've been in love with all my life. Try not to forget that what we're here for. Just make sure you get the right story, and I will do all the right sketches.
Shh, we're here. Be quiet.
I just want to say one thing that I neglected to say in the beginning. Bill Lampley, who's playing Jason, will also play the British sailor.
Can you speak a little louder for me?
Bill Lampley is his name. He will play two parts.
What?
He will play two parts. The British sailor. Kenneth Scott will play two parts. It's on the program. So just wanted to let you know. Thank you so much.
Hear me all right so far?
Fine.
How about you? Okay. We'll do what we can do.
A little louder.
Okay.
Speak a little slower. Yes.
That's fine.
Old people have nerves. Who could that be? Just a minute, I'm coming. Yes.
Bonjour, madame.
Bonjour, monsieur.
Madame Hemmings.
Oui, monsieur.
Comment allez-vous, madame?
Très bien, merci.
Permettez-moi, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, monsieur, entrez, s'il vous plaît. Looks like rain. Parlez-vous anglais, monsieur?
But I man.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, he speaks English and so do I. Sorry. I didn't mean to speak French. I was taken aback when I saw you.
What exactly is it that you want?
My name is Henri Renard. This is my helper, Jason Williams. We both work for La Liberté, a newspaper in Paris, France.
Paris, France. What are you doing here? What do you want with me?
Madame, we wondered if you would tell us about your life with Mr. Jefferson.
My life with Mr. Jefferson. Why would that interest you?
Our newspaper is interested.
You came all the way from Paris, France, just to ask questions about my life with Mr. Jefferson.
Oh, no, ma'am. We've been here for a few minutes working on things, but on July 4th, we heard of his death. We knew it would be an important news story, so we wired our paper for permission to attend his funeral, and...
You were at the funeral?
Yes, ma'am. I asked Madame Martha to point you out, but she said you were not there. So she told us how to get to your cabin. She said you would probably need some cheering up.
Need cheering up.
Miss Martha said you might be feeling rather lonely.
Lonely. Well, that's interesting. That never bothered her before. Well, go over to that table there and just sit down.
We're returning to my country tomorrow. This place makes me feel like I'm back in Paris.
Yes, ma'am. Never expected to see something as beautiful as this stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, what exactly was it you expected to see, monsieur? No, never mind.
I must apologize for him. He doesn't know what he's saying half the time. However, the beauty in here is beyond his wildest dreams. Mine, too, for that.
Yes, ma'am. I meant to say you are more beautiful than he ever said you were.
Jason, please, stop it.
No, never mind, monsieur. I was just getting ready to have a cup of tea. Would you like some?
Oui, madame.
Yes, ma'am. That will be jolly good.
Wow, exquisite china.
Oh, it must have cost a pretty penny.
Thank you. So, is it always this chilly in July?
No, monsieur. I believe we're going to have rain today. Now, let's see. You all are newspaper people, and you want to write my story for your paper.
Oui, madame. We would be most grateful if you would tell us a story about your life with President.
My life with Thomas Jefferson. Well, come over here when you finished your tea. Perhaps I will tell you our story. Do you want to ask me questions, or do you want me to tell the story in my own way? Or?
Whatever makes you feel comfortable. I do have a few questions. May I sit here?
You may. What about your friend?
He's fine over there. All he'll do is make a sketch of the cabin, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
Now, how did you get this cabin? Why were you in Paris? What were you doing?
No, wait. No, stop. I don't think I want to answer any questions. Look, no, perhaps we better not.
Please, madame, just tell the story any way you want, but just tell your story, please.
My life with Thomas. Yes, I think I feel better telling our story my way. And at least you'll get it firsthand.
That's just fine, though. We've heard so many things, like your room was in the big house. You were his chambermaid. It's been said that you were very special to Mr. Jefferson.
Special to him? Yes, I guess you could say that. I guess you could just say that.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not here to make you cry. Perhaps it's too soon.
No, monsieur. No matter. I've been like this ever since, well, okay, never mind. I'll tell you what you want to know. And, perhaps it would help to talk about it. Oh, Mama. I wish you were here. You were so much stronger than I am.
Mama? What's that got to do with it? I thought he asked her about her life with Mr. Jefferson. Shh.
Well, Mama was Mr. Wales, and he used her as his special house mistress slave. And one day, Master Wales, he told her he was going to have a visitor, a sailor who was an admiral in His Majesty's Navy, and he wanted her to prepare a fine dinner and a large pitcher of lemonade. Now, Mama made the best lemonade. I don't know what all she put in it besides lemon, but once you had a glass of Mama's lemonade, well, you never wanted nobody else's.
Lemonade? That sounds good.
But anyway, she always did whatever you told her to, even though she hated Mr. Wales. Well, anyway, she started cooking the night before the visitor was expected, rose extra early that morning, dressed in her special clothes, set the dining room table. Well, she just had everything ready when the sailor arrived. And she gave them a little time together and then walked into the front porch, carrying a heavy silver tray with a pitcher of lemonade and 2 large silver mugs.
Now, were you there, madame?
Huh? What?
Were you there when your mother made the lemonade?
Oh, no, sir. I wasn't even born. But my mama told me this story so many times I could just see every bit of it. Now, sir, just as Mama picked up that huge lemonade pitcher, he jumped out of his chair and he walked right over to her And he covered her hand with his hand, and he tried to help her lift it. He just stared right into her eyes, and Mama said that their eyes spoke in silence. Just a moment. And she had the most interesting eyes. I mean, big, deeply set blue-green eyes that sparkled against her smooth, brown, coffee-colored skin. We were always told to keep our eyes lowered.
Say, Raymond.
Yes, that's true. Mama said right at that moment, something happened. She couldn't put her finger on it. But somehow, as she felt the sailor's eyes, there was an unspoken message. And Master Wales told the sailor to sit down. He didn't need to help her. She was supposed to serve them. And the sailor seemed kind of embarrassed about that, but he obeyed. Mama went about the rest of that day serving their dinner and making sure they had all they wanted to drink. But she said it was one of those real hot summer days. And they just kept asking for more and more of her lemonade. And well, later that evening, toward twilight, when Mama was sitting around the table in her cabin giving her children their dinner, there came a knock on the door. And the children were told to always hide if someone unexpectedly knocked or tried to force the door. Mama's children they just ran and hid. And she walked slowly toward the door. And there, to her surprise, stood the same sailor that tried to help her pour the lemonade.
Good evening, ma'am. May I talk to you for just a moment?
Yes, I'll be out soon. I'll only take a minute.
He stood there looking kind of shy, holding his sailor's cap in his hand. He smiled and he shifted his weight from foot to foot. And Martha said she was surprised and felt a tingle just go up her spine. And she closed the door and made sure the children were prepared for the bed. She tucked them in, pulled her shawl off the peg on the wall, and then walked outside.
Good evening, ma'am. I certainly did enjoy that lemonade today. It was the best I ever tasted.
Thank you, sir.
May we talk together for a little while?
Yes, sir. We've got to walk down the slave lane, sir.
Well, whatever you say, ma'am. Sure is a beautiful evening. Just perfect for a slow stroll, don't you think?
Yes, sir. We do have nice, warm summer nights down here.
Mama said she felt a little confused. Nobody had ever asked her what she wanted before. She was always told what to do. Well, they walked along those lanes for a long, long time that night, talking, laughing, and drinking in the intoxicating aroma of the honeysuckle vines and the night bloom and jasmine, listening to the sound of 1,000 crickets. And when she returned to the cabin, she just felt like she was glowing all over, just like all the lightning bugs flitting to and fro against the deep, dark indigo color of that warm, velvet summer night. Every part of her body felt like the blood was hopping, skipping, jumping, just joyously moving through her veins.
May I, madame?
Oh, I guess so, but why write this? I thought you wanted to know about Master Jefferson.
I do, ma'am. But perhaps it's an important part of your story. I think I better write it down as to not forget.
Well, I'm just trying to tell you a little bit about the things that made an effect on her life.
Yes, that's what I thought. Please continue.
Well, Mama said that happened almost every night during this 3-month stay. One night, the sailor asked if she would like to go to England with him.
Well, what did she say?
Well, she said yes, immediately. However, she didn't think anything would come of it. She and her children belonged to Master Wales.
Sir, do you mean you want to buy me from Master Wales? Well, sir, you don't have to ask me about that. That's between you and the master.
Please stop. I want you to be my wife. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, not like master and slave, but man and woman. I believe I fell in love with you from the first moment
Oh my God. Am I dreaming? Can this be real?
No, ma'am, you're not dreaming. I need you beside me. Each time I leave you, I feel as if a part of me is missing. I'm having a very difficult time concentrating on my conversations with Mr. Wales. Every time you walk into the room, it's all I can do, not to run to you and take you in my arms. I'm buoyed by your presence. I smell the warmth of your body, I need to feel the silky smoothness of your skin next to mine every day. Oh, my love, I do not want to spend another night alone on my cot without you.
But you know I belong to Master Wales. My children belong to Master Wales. I can never leave my children. He's taken enough of them away from me already. Please, so what about my children?
We'll take them with us.
For real? Will you buy them too?
She belonged to Master Wales. He was the father of her children, just taking his rights.
Taking his rights.
She could never leave her children. And the master had already sold 3 of them. They were his property. He would never let them go. She just started screaming and crying. The sailor took her into his arms, held her real tight, and told her not to worry. He talked to Master Wales. Somehow or other, that made her feel better. For the rest of the night, they were like 2 carefree children. That night after he left, Mama said she realized she had some feeling for a man. She felt like a sure enough woman. When she went to bed, she had a real hard time falling asleep.
Oh, she probably kept thinking of that sailor.
Yeah, I can just see them walking together, holding hands.
She snuggled closer to her 2 boys and began to dream about a new life for her children. A life of respect, where they could have an equal chance to make their way, not as slaves shuffling behind a white master's boots. Tears began flowing from her eyes and she finally cried herself to sleep, knowing that all her wishes were just dreams.
Let me build a fire, ma'am. It's getting a bit chilly. I almost feel what your mama must have felt.
Really? How so?
Many a night, laid in my cold bed, making up dreams about the way I wish things would be.
Making up dreams. Cold bed. What about your family, your mommy, your papa?
I have no family. My father was all I had, and he died several years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had to sell the only thing we owned,
What was that?
our carriage. Do you remember the beautiful carriage you used to ride in Paris?
Beautiful carriage.
Yes, ma'am. On the outside, the color was a deep blue with shiny black trim. We had 4 French coach horses, which I fed, brushed, and groomed daily.
4? Well, most carriages only had 2 horses.
Oh, I know, madam. That's what made our services so much better than others. We were different. We could move faster.
Renard, why are you telling her your story?
The horses were the most beautiful piebald horses for miles around. People would stop and stare as they pranced with their heads high, their manes properly positioned, hanging down straight, and curled up on the ends as if styled by a French coiffure.
You know, I think I do remember the black and white horses. Oh my goodness, Mr. Jefferson commented once as to how unusual it was to see French coach.
Horses, groomed in that manner. He knew a lot about horses and truly loved them. He and I had a lengthy conversation once about horses. Oh, but do you remember the outside of the coach, the inside of the coach?
No, I'm not sure.
The seats were covered in French brocade to a clear blue sky. White lace curtains draped the windows.
Monsieur, now I do remember your carriage.
Look, Renard, you've interrupted her story.
I'm sorry, madame. Please
No,
forgive me. I
no,
didn't.
please, sir. Continue.
Thank you. Well, those horses were my father's pride and joy. Our passengers never paid until their trip was completed, and so he worried about paying for their care. They always wanted money in advance, and sometimes we'd run into a kind soul on one of the farms who would let us board them in their barn for a few sous. I believe it was the worry that caused him to drink so much.
Drink? What have you done, monsieur?
One morning on the way to Le Havre, we overnighted our passengers at Madame Fontaine's farm. We'd done that many times before. Our horses were familiar with their barn. After we left our passengers at the house, we headed directly for the barn. Father slept with the horses, and Jason and I, we slept down the hill in the shed. Father had been drinking heavy all day. He said his rheumatism was bothering him. Wasn't able to take the reins, not once during that long trip. I awoke with a start. It was as if I could hear my father calling me. I knew it was impossible because I was way down at the bottom of the hill. Anyway, I quickly rushed up the hill, and for some reason, as I did, I had a funny feeling in my stomach. Not the feeling of hunger, which I was very familiar, but the strange feeling that I'd never known before. I couldn't seem to move fast enough in that cold, drizzling rain. When I opened the barn door, our 4 horses began to prance and whinny. That was unusual. It startled me.
What a miserable day, yeah.
I hurried over to their stalls and I tried to calm them. I wondered, où est mon Pierre? And I got to the last stall and I saw this red and black bundle beside the hooves of one of the horses. I knelt down and I began to pull the sticky, wet-smelling bundle towards me.
Oh, monsieur, votre père?
Oui, madame. He was curled up like a ball of hay lying in a pool of blood. He must have rolled beneath the horse's hooves as they tried to get out of his way. Somehow or another, he was stomped to death.
I am so sorry.
He looked as if somebody had taken a handful of black dirt and mixed it with dry brown hay and pushed it deep into every part of his body with the use of a horse's hoof. His face was pulverized beyond recognition. It was only because I knew that I had left him here that it was the mélange, was mon père.
That was a very dark morning.
But what about your mama? Where was she?
I never knew my mother. I was told she died giving birth to me.
I'm so sorry.
My father was a loving father who could not help the miseries that befell him. He was a poor man, always dreaming about a better day. I had to sell the only thing he loved most to pay his debts.
Oh no, that beautiful carriage and its horses.
I sold the carriage. My father's friend said we could sleep in his print shop for free if we'd clean up at the end of each day. We did that for several years. He taught us a lot about the newspaper business.
I see. So he's the owner of the paper you now work for.
Oui, madame.
What about the horses? You probably had a hard time selling them.
Oh, he killed them. Shot each and every last one of them like someone who'd gone mad. I could not believe my eyes. I watched him laugh and scream and roll over and over on that dirty ground as he shot and refilled his pistol, and tears began to roll down his cheeks.
Oui, madame. I've lived that night 1,000 times. But enough of that. Please forgive me. I've interrupted your story. I'm sorry. What about your mother?
Mama, what about Mr. Jefferson?
I believe the last thing you said was that she had gone to bed, began to cry, and snuggle her children.
Oh. Yes, but perhaps I can continue. Let me think. The night after Mama left, the sailor, and she crawled into bed with her 2 boys, and she cried herself to sleep. A few nights later, the sailor knocked on the door, as he had many times before, and they walked down to the lane, but something was wrong. There was something in his voice that was different, and she stopped. She looked at him. He took her in his arms.
Love, I will be leaving here early tomorrow morning.
What? What's wrong? I thought you were going to talk to Master Wales about...
Don't be so upset. Listen for a minute. I am a member of His Majesty's Navy. I was waiting for my orders, and, well, I will come back for you.
Mama said it was one of the saddest nights of her life. She felt worse than the times she ran away, was found and brought back. She was never meant to be no slave. No, sir, she had run away many times before. That's why Master Wales decided to bring her into the big house. She hated the master. He put her into a special slave's cabin after she had their first child. It was close to the big house. That way he could come over and take his rights whenever he felt like it, day or night.
Did they marry, madame?
Who? Oh. You mean Mama and the sailor?
Oh, I suppose it was a stupid question. You
No,
wouldn't be
sir.
here if...
No, that never happened. Something very, very strange did happen.
What, ma'am?
Well, one day when I was in the big house, helping Mama get the dishes ready for the dinner table, a tall man, dressed in a white sailor suit, walked in and went over to Mama, and her face changed immediately. I got scared. I thought she was going to cry. And she grabbed her throat with one hand and covered her mouth with the other. I didn't know whether to run or hide. And he just walked right over to her. His arms around her. He held her for a moment. He just picked her up off the floor and began to turn her round and round. And he laughed so loud. I felt scared. I felt scared, and yet I felt this was nothing to be scared of. And finally he put her down. And Mama had a big smile all over her face. And she turned to me, and she took my hand, and she said,
This here is Sally. Say good evening, sir.
well, I did exactly what Mama told me to. And then almost before I finished talking, that sailor picked me up and swung me around and held my face close to his and stared at me for what seemed like forever. And my two skinny legs were just dangling and wiggling back and forth, and I just kept wishing he would put me down so I could touch the floor.
Oh, that must have been a great
And he
feeling.
finally did just that, and he turned to Mama, and he said,
That there is mine.
and I stood very close to Mama, holding tightly onto her dress, because I thought he was going to take me away from her. And she took my hand and squeezed it and said,
Yes, sir. That's right.
and that sailor began to just talk back and forth, kind of funny, and just like that, and just like something, it just hit him on the leg or something. And finally he stopped, and he or Mama began to talk softly. I mean, I couldn't make out what they were saying. And he picked me up just once more before he left the room. And he gave me a quick kiss on this here cheek. I will never forget the sparkle in his eyes and the way he made me feel.
How did he make you feel? Was it a happy feeling, madame?
Happy? Oh, perhaps, I don't know. Different. I think he was happy. I'm not sure what I was feeling, but Mama, she seemed like a different person. Something changed her. She wasn't her old self.
Ooh la la! That was your father, madame. C'est vrai. Did Mr. Wales know that?
That was my father. I don't think Master Wales knew anything. The only person that knows a baby's true daddy is its mama. Say blame, monsieur.
I guess you do have a point.
Anyway, a few nights later, when we were all sitting in our cabin eating our supper, Mama told the boys that we were going on a trip. She took them aside and softly talked to them for a long time. James began to cry. He picked me up and gave me a real big hug. Now, Robert wasn't much of a hugger, but he hugged me anyway. And Mama started moving around the cabin, picking up things and throwing them into one of our old cotton sacks. Draped her warm shawl over my head and said,
Come on, Sally, follow me.
and I always did whatever Mama told me to do, so I walked out the door. And I turned around and looked back at my brothers and began to cry. But Mama grabbed my hand and said,
Come on, honey, we gotta hurry. And you see them again to stop that crying.
so we started walking, running, walking, and running all the way to the riverbed. We finally got there, and we began to slow down. Just standing right at the edge of the shore was that same sailor in front of a little rowboat. And he ran toward Mama and me, and he grabbed Mama's hand and picked me up, and he started running toward his boat while he explained that he would not have to row far to the ship. And he was just about to put me into that little boat when out from out of nowhere stepped Mr. Wales.
Stop right there! Stop or I'll shoot!
And Mama began to shake all over. The sailor stood in front of her and began to yell at Master Wales, and they yelled back and forth at each other for a long while, and Mama was just standing there with her head just bent, all shaking, all bent
Oh, my
It
Lord.
was freezing cold out there. I noticed that Master Wales was standing near a small fire, and I began to move toward the fire. And Mama and the sailor followed me, and the argument got louder and louder. And It was bright red. And Master pushed the sailor aside. He turned toward Mama. And he said,
Now, sir, I'm surprised at you. Why, I took you into my home and extended to you all courtesies. Now you're trying to steal my slaves. You could have gone to jail.
Sir, you remember, I tried to talk to you about this woman and her children, but you wouldn't...
Remember what I told you? That's not the way we do things down here. You decided to take the law into your own hands. Well, I'll fix you. I'll fix both of you. I'm going to brand her cheeks so everyone will know that she belongs to me.
Master Wales lifted his hand, and he was about to bring that iron right down on Mama's cheek. The sailor, he tried to knock that branding iron out of the master's hand, and well...
What happened, ma'am?
Then that hot iron, it fell right on Mama's chest. Then it slid down between her breasts, and Mama grabbed it. Oh, but it only made things worse.
Dear God, ma'am, please stop here.
And just as she grabbed at that iron, somehow or another, she leaned forward. She raised her arm and turned her face up. And at that moment, the red-hot iron fell on her face. And it landed right between her right ear, the corner of her right eye. And she let out a scream like I never heard before. Oh, God. It sounded like the screeching, hissing, retching, high-pitched of a wild animal just caught in a trap. And the sorrowful moan of a human talking last breath of being struck up on that lynching tree. Oh, God. She fell to the ground right in front of the fire. Her face became dark purple, and beads of water dotted her forehead, her nose and cheeks, and blood. Oh, God, it was spurting from her eye. And the sound of the boiling water, it was popping from her face. Her other eye took blades like a trapped wild animal as it began to move, just around and around. I grabbed her arm. I looked up into the sailor's face, and I saw tears falling from his eyes. Even the master's face showed shock.
Are you okay? Please, madam. Is there anything I
I
can do?
shall never forget the smell of her burning flesh. It was like the rotten meat of the dead horses I smelled so often when the master burned the bodies of his old sick mares. Mama jumped, she howled, she moaned. She began to rock back and forth. She was crying and yelling, vomiting over and over. Her face, it looked raw, just red, dripping blood. The shape of the letter W oozed red and yellow, and I buried my face in her skirt, and my teeth clenched together in anger and fear. I began to match her screams as the tears from her eyes. And my eyes sucked the hem of her skirt. I think it was then that she felt totally destroyed. I vaguely remember being dragged onto the master's wagon. It was a night I dreamed about for a long time.
You don't dream about it anymore?
Only sometimes.
Well, what happened to the sailor?
She went about each day like someone dead. She never smiled. And always moved very, very slowly. Sometimes I'd see a tear trickle down just the left side of her cheek as she held her hand over the other side of her face. She had a terrible scar. The letter W was always visible. It was kind of strange. We never saw the sailor again.
Did Mr. Wales kill him?
I don't know. But we never saw or heard anything about him again. Mama was not the same after that night. Is that?
What's what?
Oh my goodness. It's raining. You know, you never know when there's going to be a summer shower.
Yes, madame. It's pouring out there. Now, be careful. Look, it's lightning.
Yes, Yes, it might just come a big storm. You know my life always changes when it rains. Mama and I came here right after Master Wales died. He had sent most of the others to this place when Master Jefferson married his daughter. But he kept Mama and me with him to serve him until his death. Mama knew we were going to be sold or sent to some other plantation. She was afraid we might be separated. Someone might buy me. So she decided to run away at least one more time. Before
what?
Before she got too old to run. Yes, sir, she always wanted to taste freedom. And the first time we set foot on this here road, on this here land, it was pouring. It was pouring. It come down big like a storm that time.
Are you all right?
I feel fine. Sit down. I'll finish telling you. We walked up that muddy road, and it was raining, just like this. Now I believe it was raining much harder than this.
Then you must have come in the summer, madame. How old were you?
Actually, it rained so hard till we could barely see what lay ahead. What lay ahead, huh? Well, that dark and stormy afternoon, those raindrops seemed to have one aim in mind, and that was to cleanse the earth and wash Mama and me away from each speck of dirt that popped out of that old ground.
Yeah, that must have been something, raining hard enough to wash you away.
Yeah, I kept thinking about our warm cabin and my brothers, and I just wish we were back there sitting around that old table eating some cornbread and greens.
That sounds good to me.
Mama woke me in the middle of the night, started putting on my outside clothes, carried me to the door, threw this old shawl over my head, and out we went. And I thought, well, okay, here we go again. I could feel the bumping movements of her body as she ran down the hill. Finally, after what seemed like forever, Mama stopped, put me on the ground and uncovered my face. It sure felt good to breathe and look around again. But we didn't stop but a minute, though.
Come on, Sally, stay real close to me. Don't look back. We gotta keep moving.
Well, we were trudging through the woods, climbing over jagged rock fences, and moving through slippery rocks, studded ice-cold streams. As fast as we could. But all of a sudden, it seemed like someone just made a big old hole in that dark black sky and poured a large bucket of cold water right on me and Mama. My shoes were soaking wet. Each time we took a step, my feet just sank into that soft, squishy mud that slowly just pressed into my thin leather shoes. I thought my strength would give out. But I knew better than to say anything to Mama, because she was not the kind of woman to complain to. No, sir. She always said,
It ain't no use in talking about something you can't do nothing about. Just keep on trying. God knows what he's doing.
Can I help you?
no thanks. But, I just feel like I need a cup of tea. Listen to that rain. Makes me feel kind of sad.
Me too.
Oh, would you like some?
Yes, thank you.
And you, sir.
Oui, madame.
Mama always said, God won't let you down. But I wasn't too sure about that. Not too sure about that at all. Because we moved on most of that night, and I was just about to get out when a streak of light just broke through those dark, heavy clouds. Mama stopped as she held her head up, looked ahead, and said,
Sally? I believe I see a house over yonder.
we hadn't gone too far when my poor foot hit against a wide board. So we climbed those boards slowly and very carefully because the rain continued to cover us. And when we got to the top there, we were standing on someone's porch. She turned to me and I noticed that I was shaking all over. My thin clothes were just clinging to my skinny body. Mama pulled me close to her and said,
Sally, I don't know who lives here, but we've got to get in out of this rain before you catch your death of cold.
Well, you must have been freezing to death.
my teeth began to chatter. I was just hopping from one foot to another. I tried to stop and stand tall and not let Mama down. It seemed as if something or someone was just in control of my body. I sneezed, and the door flew open. And the tall, red-haired boy just jumped out onto the wet porch. He put his arms around me, and he began to pull me into the house. He yelled at someone.
Bring dry rags. Hurry. These people are soaking wet and about to freeze to death.
I tried to pull away from his grasp because I just wanted to see where Mama was. I felt her trying to wipe my slimy face with the hem of her wet skirt. Somebody was pulling my clothes off. And all of a sudden it seemed as if a dark cloth was pulled over my face.
I guess you fainted.
I guess so. Because when I opened my eyes, I looked up, and there was the same person with red hair sitting next to the bed. His face seemed familiar, but I was so sick until I didn't make no matter of it. I just muttered, "Mama." And he put his face in front of mine and said,
Thank God you've returned to me, my friend.
well, he spoke so softly and gently till I slowly sank back down into the feathery covers and I began to doze. I felt so neatly wrapped in the warmth of his voice, and when I woke, I looked around and said, "Where's my mama?" And he jumped out of his chair and ran out of the room, and shortly, he returned with my mama. And I began to cry, and she put her arms around me and said,
Stop crying, child. Now everything's all right. Now you just rest.
oh, and Mama held me in her arms, and she rocked me back to sleep. And as I dozed off, I could hear the voice of that boy saying,
Try to rest, my friend. Your mama will always be here with you. Don't worry. Just try to rest.
I later learned he kept watch over me day and night. It was because of him I made it through those racking coughs and high fevers. And Mama and some of the other slaves, they all saved my life. He read to me every day.
Oh, is that how you learned to read?
Mm-hmm. I thought I heard something, didn't you?
No, madam. Only the rain.
Oh, well, I guess I wish I had. Anyway, Mama said that it was that old honeysuckle bush brushing against the side of this cabin. I guess, well, maybe it was all these trees that they were planted by him, you know? He planted these dogwoods here himself. Now everything's bloomed again. I love this time of year. Do you like summertime?
Yes, madam.
Everything is so pretty and green, and crops are growing. Lots of collards, corn, tomatoes. I remember the first time I fried him some corn and green tomatoes.
I do like corn and tomatoes.
He ate so much cornbread, chicken, collards, and that fried corn. So he couldn't get his clothes on. He couldn't get on the horse. I made him walk around a bit, and then he said he just had to lie down a while, you know. And his head and his stomach, they was killing him. I helped him over to the bed, pulled off his boots, watched him as he stretched his long, lanky body on my narrow little bed. That was the first time he stayed all night, right in this here little cabin. I stayed right there, near him, and I just watched him fall asleep. He used to suffer with terrible headaches, you know. But that night, I guess he had just eaten too much. And later, as I began to pull his clothes off so he could rest, he awoke. Pulled me right in with him.
Oh, my.
I sometimes look at that little bed and I wonder how it ever held the two of us. I guess we didn't need much room. Sometimes I'd have just a hard time breathing, but I never told him because whenever his hot skin hit mine, I didn't care about anything, just that precious moment. He was violent and gentle, just all at the same time, and I just lose all sense of time and just melt like the butter we used to drizzle on his potatoes. I guess he always liked melted butter on his potatoes.
So do I.
What did I tell you? Be quiet.
I didn't do anything.
You are so rude to her. Apologize to Madame right now.
Please, there is no reason to be apologizing.
No, Madame. He has no respect for you, and I mean for him to learn.
Well, no, that's not true. I do have respect for her. She's more lovely than you described. Her ivory skin, her little tempting mouth, her strong, slender
I
body.
am getting so sick of you. Get out! Pack up your things and get out!
Just a minute, monsieur. This is my cabin. Both of you must go.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm tired.
I'm sorry, madame. Forgive me.
Just please leave me with my memories.
May we come back tomorrow? Early? We will be sailing back to France.
Perhaps. I don't know. Well, maybe. Yes. Yes, you can come early. I'll prepare breakfast. Just come for breakfast. But for now, goodbye.
Goodbye, madame.
Sleep well, ma'am. Oh, she's wonderful. What'll be the title for this article?
I'm not sure. Sally and Thomas. No. Thomas and Sally.
Well, how about Sally's love story?
I like that. It is a love story after all.
You are quite right. I think it's about more than one love.
I've got it. Let's call it Sally, a love story.
Oh, yes. I think that'll catch some people's eye. A story about love. Who knows who's in love with whom, eh? Not sure how this story's gonna end.
We're gonna have a 10-minute intermission. There's lemonade outside. It's hard.
Better be good.
To get it's hard to get up and down these steps, so if somebody, Carol, if you'll help me guide people, they can walk out there and into that little concession and just let them know you're with the group and there's lemonade for them.
I want to get something to Betty before I forget. Betty back there? Betty? I'm not crazy.
Okay.
There's still some...
There's still some people out there.
Well, let's just commute with each other.
And, you know, they left at the end of the first act, and they're now returning to Sally's cabin. I'm sorry, yeah, no.
That'll teach Jason.
Oh, we've got the audience. Who cares about the actor? Let's go.
You can handle another part, can't you?
What, 3? Oh man, my lip is too. Can't handle that.
Get your SAG contract, huh?
Overload you.
Think of how diversified you'd be.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait. He has a line. We do have to hold.
Darn. You had to.
Here it is now, okay. Sally's in the kitchen kind of cooking breakfast. Bacon is sizzling on the stove, and other breakfast food is on the table.
You want to do that again?
No. No, just sit. Which here, yeah.
Well, I guess they'll come back today. They haven't heard the best part of my story. My love story with... Entrez, monsieur, the door is open.
Home at home, madame. Ça va bien.
Oui, monsieur, tout va bien. Maintenant.
Oh, goodbye, madam.
Good morning, sir. And be careful you don't drop anything on my beautiful floor.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'll do my best not to drop anything on your fine, shiny floors.
Did you sleep well, madame?
I didn't fall right to sleep. I kind of...
Oh, neither did we, man. We talked and talked and talked late into the night.
Jason, please. He tells everything. We just tried to review the day.
No matter, no matter. I have fixed us something to eat. Are you hungry?
Yes, ma'am. I'm most definitely hungry. I haven't eaten anything since we left here yesterday. Oh, everything smells so good.
It certainly does smell appetizing.
Well, come on over here and sit down and eat before the food gets cold and I change my mind.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, so you and your mother ran away to a place you were going to be sent eventually, right?
Yes, we just took the hard way getting here.
But how could she see? I mean, was she able to see out of that eye? You know, the eye with the hot iron hit?
No, she was never able to see out of that eye again. You know, in fact, it was closed. It was sealed. Her other eye always looked a little strange.
Did your brothers ever run away with you and your mother?
Oh, no, Mama would never let the boys go. No, she said the boys would end up at the end of the rope if they were in the court.
Did you ever help President Jefferson's wife?
This is what the mistress used to ring when she needed me for a little something extra.
How old were you when you came to Monticello?
I'm not sure. Maybe 8, 9.
Oh, President Jefferson was much older than you.
Oh, yes. At first, he was maybe more like a father figure. He was maybe 20 or 30 years older than me.
Yes, ma'am, he certainly could have been your father. Well, what was wrong with him? He shouldn't act like a father. I mean, pulling you into
Jason, stop it.
One moment, monsieur. Stop yelling at him. He is right. Why are you so against him?
Against him? Why, we took him in, didn't we?
Your kind-hearted father took me in.
Did you work on the plantation like the other slaves?
No. Mama worked in the big house, and that's where I was most of the time.
Most of the time?
Yes, sometimes the Master Jefferson. He just wanted me to sit near him.
Sit near him? Is that all?
May I help you do anything?
No, just sit still. I just don't think I like answering questions.
I'm sorry, madam. Please continue your way. Forgive me for...
But now let me think. Now, what was it?
Well, he was just getting ready to pull you into that bed, and...
No, I got off the beaten path. Yes, I got off the path, and oh yes, and I recovered from that hacking cough, that coughing sickness, and one day Mama came into that big room, and she began to help me get dressed, and she put this beautiful calico dress on me. I'd never seen anything so pretty in my life. The bodice was trimmed with little curly white lace, and it had silver buttons just up and down the front, and I asked Mama where this dress came from.
Hush up, child. I just heard. Gotta dress you before the master comes.
My little heart fell to my feet.
Master? Oh, Mama, are we back where we came from? No, child. But we're not too far from there.
My, don't you look pretty? That fits just right. Do you like it?
Yes, sir, I said. Mama began to jerk the sleeves of the dress till I thought she'd pull my arms off my shoulders.
Thank Master Jefferson for this pretty dress, honey, and let's speak up.
I just turned round and round and said, "Thank you, sir." Mama pulled me out of the room. You know, that tall, skinny boy was old. I thought he was just a boy, but he was a man. He was an old man. And his wife was Master Whale's daughter. Well, the day Mama and I walked out of that room, it was raining. We walked in all that rain only to get to the house we were going to be sent to anyway, just like you said.
What a shame.
Well, Mama looked kind of sad. And I remember seeing that look on Mama's face once before. Oh, it was when we was living in Master Whale's cabin. Sometimes the master or some other white man would come down there. Mama always shoot us children outside. And well, the master or some other man would stay for a little while and then get on his horse and ride away. And this happened many, many times. Later on, many weeks later, maybe months later, Mama would get fat around the stomach, and then time would go by, and Mama would introduce us to a new brother or sister. Most of the time, those babies would disappear. I mean, we'd wake up one morning and look around one day, and those babies would be gone. Well, one day I asked Mama what happened to those babies, and she didn't answer right away. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she looked very, very sad. And she looked at me in a way I shall never forget.
Don't ever ask me about those babies again. You must never talk about them. You've got to learn to be strong. Never, never attach yourself to anything. Never let the white man know you care for anything. Because one day, child, no matter how nice he might seem to be, he will take it from you. He only sees money. He can't help it. No matter how much he wants to. He has been taught for years that there is a higher power, and that higher power can get you whatever you want. Money is his God. Don't even forget that, Sally.
Well, now, just hold on there, Missy. I mean, please tell me something you can do without money.
Jason, what did I tell you? Keep your stupid mouth shut. It's rude to break in on someone else when someone else is talking. Now apologize.
Apologize. That's all I've been doing.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I wouldn't offend you for anything, especially since you are the love of his life.
Why,
I
you...
started crying again. Mama grabbed me by the arm and she took the hem of her skirt and wiped my face and she said,
Oh, now hush, child, stop that crying. Now, I'm only trying to help you make it through this life. Try to remember everything I'll tell you. You must learn to keep secrets. Be seen and not heard.
I pulled myself away from her and I said, seen and not heard, huh? Slapped me across the face. I was so surprised. She'd never hit me before. She immediately grabbed me and held me so tight I just started to cough.
Sally, I'm just trying to help you stay alive, honey. I don't mean to hurt you, but it's better to be hurt by me than by...
She just stopped talking. She pulled me over to this here rocker and just sat down and began to tell me many things about life. One of the things was about the sheets in the big house.
Sheets in the big house? What about the sheets in the big house, madame?
Well, she said that whenever I go into the big house to change the sheets or dust the rooms, I must never notice or mention whether someone else has slept on those sheets other than the missus. It would always never be any of my business.
Well, now, I don't understand.
If I was ever asked by the master whether I noticed anything unusual about those sheets, I must never forget to say, no, sir.
Oh.
There were many times when I watched Mama bring a baby into this sad world. Sometimes Mrs. would look at her new baby, even take it in her arms and hold it. However, I have never seen a time when one of those misses chose to keep one of those babies. Sometimes there were tears in their eyes when they told Mama to get rid of that baby, wrap it in a cloth and bury it.
Bury it? Alive? Well, how could they?
Just because those babies' skin wasn't their color. Wasn't to be sure that nobody ever saw those babies. Never wanted the master to know that most of the time while he was away on his business, one of those big bucks had filled his place in that grand bed.
Wait a minute. You mean they really wanted her to kill those poor innocent little creatures?
How could a mother...
Mama always pretended to bury those babies. But oh, she sent many a one over to a slave on another plantation. And Mama never had no trouble giving those babies away. It wasn't its fault. How was it to know what color was the right color to choose when it was in its mama's stomach? No, sir, it wasn't its fault. You know, those books there on that shelf were treated better than us slaves.
Please, madame, try not to get too upset. Remember what your mama told you?
What?
Ain't no use in worrying about something you can't do nothing about.
Mama always said I had the worst temper she ever did see.
You, madame?
Oh, yes, Mr. Jefferson said the same thing. Oh, we had our times. Yes, we did. He was soft-spoken, never wanted me to contradict him, but he knew better than to get on my bad side. Yes, sir, we had some real high times when I couldn't hold my anger.
Boy, madame, one would never think that. Just to look at
There
you.
were times when I get fired up about something he had written. Oh, he would ask questions about things like why we smelled different than white folks. I told him, if white people worked out in the fields all day and slept in those little hot, dirty cabins with only one bucket of water to go around, they would smell bad too. I get fired mad. He'd just tell boys to get on their horses and they'd all go for a ride. And by the time they returned, well, most of the time, I pulled off. But all of them knew when to stay out of my way. It was when I was angry.
Why couldn't you hold your anger?
I don't know. I guess I was just teased so much by other children here on this plantation.
You mean the children in the big house? Or the children of the slaves families?
Oh. Mainly by my own people. Some of them were my worst enemies. They'd throw clouds of dirt at me and call me a green-eyed cat. And they would sing this terrible song whenever I walked past. Little Sally Hammond's back and forth and bending. Look at her green eyes. Aren't you surprised? Well, I just get so mad. And I hated my eyes. And I hated those gals.
I love it.
Well, there was one gal in particular who was always trying to get me into some kind of trouble. And she never passed by me without saying something or trying to make me trip over those jagged stones on that old dirt road. You see that?
Oui, madame.
Well, that is all kind of that gal. I just felt so many times and got so many scars on my legs because of her. I just wanted to kill her. And one day when I was washing the master's clothes, that gal just kept walking around, singing that old song. And at first I tried not to look her way. Well, she kept walking around this big black kettle and I was washing in it. And I wanted to throw some of that water on her, just figuring that scalding hot water would fix her good. Anyway, there I was, standing on this big rock, minding my own business. Look at Sally Hammond's getting all those white babies on the yellow arms and the bubbles. And I was just firing mad. I was just so mad. And I got down off of that rock and I put my hands on my hips and I decided to go after that gal. Just as I moved forward, my toe hit a small rock. And it kind of made me think of Mom. I turned around, picked up a bunch of Master's white shirts, and then I headed towards the clothesline. But she was walking right behind me, carrying this big stick, and I seen her when she picked it up. And I thought to myself, she better not try anything. I will scratch those big, ugly brown eyes out of her big, fat, ugly face.
Ma'am, you wouldn't do anything like that. A pretty little petite thing such as yourself, would you?
I just kept walking like she was nowhere around. And then, just like a flash of lightning, she ran out in front of me and I fell. All the Master's shirts hit the ground and the dirt and I lay there flat on my face. And by the time some of the others had come to see what was going on, and they was all laughing and singing that old song, I just jumped up off there ground and I grabbed that gal by the hair and I tried my best to pull every bit of it out. And I just started punching and kicking and fighting and doing everything I could to hurt her. And all I could think of was, I have got to shut her up forever. I have got to beat her to death. And I was fighting and screaming and just crying, just all at the same time. And then I felt somebody pull me off her saying, "Stop it, Sally! Stop it right there!" I started to cough. Mama pulled me by this here ear. She just dragged me into this here cabin. She ducked me in the middle of this floor here. She started tapping me on the back and then my chest, and she was patting so hard, I thought, if this coughing don't kill me, surely Mama's patting would. Well, I tried to stop coughing, and tears were just flowing from my eyes, and mucus was just flowing out of my nose onto my mouth, and Mama just took the hem of her skirt again and wiped my mouth and wiped my face. Oh, she held me real close, and she began to recite her Bible verse.
Lord, please help this here child. Oh, my God. In thee do I put my trust. Save me from all them that persecute me, and deliver me. Psalm 7, verse 1. Now, Sally, you say that verse over and over when you feel like you just got to fight. Don't let them get the best of you. Can't you see, honey? Tain't no use. Ain't never gonna change anything. Ain't never gonna change the color of your eyes, skin, or nothing. You are who you is, and you always look the way you do. Better carry that verse in your heart, because when you fight one of them there gals, another one's gonna come up, and another. So can't you see? It's better to turn the other cheek.
Mama was right. And that wasn't the only time they tried to get me fired up either. I just kept saying this verse. But I had many other fights. But I always tried to do everything Mama told me to do. So I just said that verse every time before I had a fight. But I wasn't dumb enough to turn the other cheek unless they hit me on both sides.
Madame, are you okay?
Once when Mama sure it was still damp. And I walked into his closet. And I held my shirt to my nose, and I took a deep breath of his clothing. And then I slipped his shirt over my head. I could feel the dampness of his sweat and the smell of his salted odor. It just, it sent a thrill through my body. I felt as if I was part of him, as if I crawled into his skin. But before I knew it, there was Mama standing right in front of me. And she jerked that shirt right over my head. And I thought my neck would just fall off my shoulders. I was so ashamed. Till I just ran over in the corner and I picked up the rest of his soiled clothes and I just ran out of that room. And I got to the big wash kettle and began to pump that water in so fast I thought my arm would fall off. I stuck some wood underneath the kettle. I started the fire. I stood up and threw all those clothes into the water. No, sir. I didn't separate nothing either. Well, Mama walked by and she looked into that kettle and she shook her head, threw in a few more colored pieces, and Mama turned around and she stared at me for a long time. Then she walked on down the lane. Oh, God, I felt like my feelings were spread across the face of the sun, and Mama was looking at them through a magnifying glass. And I just started to cough. I just couldn't look at Mama in the face, and I couldn't stop coughing.
Yeah, please be careful.
And Mama came back, and she pulled me toward her, and she began to pat my back, and she began to hold my arms over my head. I couldn't stop coughing.
Please be careful. Try to stop. Oh my goodness. Come on, madame. You can do it. You must stop coughing right now. Sacre bleu. At last. Are you all right, madame? Oh, Jason, come over here and help me.
Well, I was just trying to stay out of your way, sir.
Now is when I need your help. You've never been there when I've needed you.
Well, now, that's not fair. I don't know when you want me to help or just sit on the side and stay out of your spotlight.
I just felt as if Mama was trying to beat me to death. I tried to calm down because I didn't want to be carried out of that feet first, you know? And she always meant well, but damn, she had some strong hands. I think it was right then and there. She made up her mind to send me away. 2 days later, she had James bring that old wagon round. He put my little bundle of clothes in the back, and he took me to Madame Dublanc's plantation. James didn't say nothing more than 10 words to me, and I cried all the way there.
Madame Dublanc? That's a French name. Was
Yes,
she a
sir.
French lady?
Mm-hmm. At first I didn't understand a word she said, but after a while I began to understand almost everything she and the children said. She was real nice to me.
Madame, are you getting cold? I'll put some more logs on the fire. Can I make you another cup of tea?
No, thank you, sir. It is a little chilly. I never noticed it to be this cold in July. I guess I need to stop here.
Oh, please don't stop. When did you and Mr. Jefferson get together as lovers? How old were you when you were in Paris? About 14, 15?
Questions. You just can't help yourself, huh? No, I really think it's time for you to leave.
Please, madame, I won't ask any more questions. Don't send me away yet. Take a rest. Lie down. I'll sit here and wait until you're feeling like talking again. You know we're leaving tonight.
I don't care.
Thank heavens. For Miss Madame Dublanc, I would have never met you.
Me, monsieur. What do you mean?
Please, madame. Permettez-moi. Do me the honor. Allow me to serve you again.
Again? Anyway, the next time I saw Mama, she told me the master had left for Paris. And I was to take the next ship after his daughter, Polly.
You mean he sent for you?
Well, no, sir. He sent for his daughter. I was just going because she couldn't go alone. But that was the same time the two blocks were traveling.
Oh, I see. So they were killing like two birds with one stone.
Are you okay?
Well, anyway, we finally got off of that big ship, and my legs were shaking. Polly and me both had a really hard time. But she wasn't throwing up. I was. When I wasn't throwing up, she was. But she was wonderful, though. And she helped me with Madame Dublanc's children. But we all helped each other. We were just one big happy family on that ship.
C'est vrai, madame.
Oui, monsieur.
Did you go to President Jefferson's immediately?
It was good to touch land again. The first time I saw him in Paris, it was raining. It was raining. My life, rain. Rain always changes my life.
Not really,
Did
madame.
you say something?
Not really, madame. Il n'y a pas de quoi. Please continue.
Anyway, he came to the Hotel de Blanc. I was making his bed when he walked into the room.
Did you know he was coming, madame?
Yes and no. I was told that a special person would be arriving, and that Madame de Blanc wanted that room especially prepared by me. I really didn't think anything of it. I never thought about him getting a room there. I mean, he already had a house in Paris. Anyway, Madame had been so good to me, so I would do anything for her. And she treated me like a real person. Now, the one thing I can say about your people, monsieur, they did not see me as a piece of property. And that's why my brother James wanted to stay there.
Your brothers and mother came to Paris?
No, only James. He came with the master.
Oh, I see. Ooh la la. I remember the first time I saw you in Paris. You were so beautiful.
What? Anyway, I was making the bed. He walked into the room. Oh, he was so tall, till his bright red hair nearly touched the ceiling. And he had to bend his head in order to get through the door. I recognized him immediately. I was surprised, but I felt something just ping in my heart. However, he didn't know who I was. He entered the room and he said,
Bonjour, madame.
Bonjour, monsieur. Ça va bien?
Oui, madame. Êtes-vous?
Très bien, monsieur. Je suis fini, monsieur. La chambre est bien.
Oui, madame. Merci beaucoup.
Pas de quoi, monsieur. Au revoir.
I walked to the door, opened it, turned around, and looked at him, and saw that he was staring at me real hard. I felt ashamed for looking back, so I just immediately rushed out of the room and quickly shut the door, and my heart, oh, it was beating so fast and loud, so I was sure he could hear it through the door. I stood there. It seemed like an eternity. I just wanted to calm down. And just as I took a few deep breaths, the door flew open. He looked surprised to see me there. I was just so nervous. So I started to cough. And he grabbed my arm and he said,
Are you all right?
I couldn't find my voice. I shook my head as I continued to cough. Oh, God. But he pulled me into his room. And he made me sit on the bed. And he poured a glass of water for me. And then he dipped his wash rag into the pitcher and he laid it on my forehead. And he began to stroke my face as he softly mumbled something. And it was then that I noticed the odd way he was holding his right hand. Well, I stopped coughing immediately and reached out to touch his hand, and he flinched. He drew back and said, no. And I became so concerned. So I forgot my problem, and I tried to straighten out his gnarled hand. And I gently stroked his wrist. And he sat back down on the bed right next to me. And I could feel the warmth of his breath against my cheek. He began to breathe faster, and I continued to stroke his wrist. And perhaps he was just trying to suppress his pain. I don't know. I got up, and I walked over to the dressing table. And I poured some water in a small pan. And I held it over a fire briefly. And then I kneeled in front of him. And I began to wrap his poor wrist with the warm rag. And I could feel his heavy breathing. And I could feel his eyes inspecting me. And he heaved a sigh of relief, and he turned my face up to his. And he said,
Are you sound?
I nodded, yes.
Why didn't you come inside the day you came to Paris with my daughter?
And I explained that I was also with the Dublanc family, and Polly insisted that I stay with the children. Just at that moment, he pulled me onto the bed. And he held me so tight, so gently. my arms around his neck. Oh, I eagerly welcomed his kisses. He began to kiss me on my face, my neck, all over my body. He clumsily pulled my clothes off, but I didn't care. I was just quivering with delight. I started helping him because he wasn't moving fast enough, and I couldn't stop shaking. I just trembled all over, and he kissed my mouth, my thighs, my legs, my total being. I thought, oh, mon Dieu, I cannot control myself. I was so excited. I must have passed out. The next thing I remember, he and I was snuggled in that big bed, completely naked, wringing wet, sweating, and clutching each other so tightly. I felt magically tired, energized, everything, all at the same time. I felt as if I had witnessed the beauty of the setting sun and the rising of the large, orange-colored harvest moon on a warm summer's night. I carefully slipped out of his arms, dressed. And I added logs to the fire so the room would be warm when he woke up. I just quietly sneaked out of the room.
Quel dommage. I mean, what a shame, madame.
I stood by the door for a moment, just feeling happy, embarrassed, concerned and aware, awakened and confused, and just wonderful. Oh, my first and only love. Where are you when I need you? I want to feel you next to me again. Oh God, please come to take me with you. Get out. Get out, mister. Leave me alone. Just leave me with my memories. I got heart. I just really need both of you to leave.
Well, why me? I didn't do anything.
Please, madame, don't cry. I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do for you? Let me help. I'm here. If I cannot fill his shoes, but please, let me help you.
Well, what are we gonna do now?
I don't know. She's still so very beautiful.
You're absolutely right. But what in the world made you think you could ever compete with him?
What?
Well, didn't you hear what she said? It was her first and perhaps only lover. So how could you compete?
I don't have to compete. Are you out of your mind?
No, I'm quite sane. Probably you who's gone a little insane.
Where is he?
Where is who?
My competitor.
Oh, you mean her love, President Jefferson?
Exactly. Where is he?
Not here. We both know he's dead.
Precisely, my friend. And so, exactly what competition are you referring to? I, my dear Mr. Jason, am alive. Very much alive.
Oh, you're still here. I'm glad. I'm sorry. Perhaps we can complete this. I'm sorry. Please come back in.
Merci, madame. Thank you so much. Don't worry, we will not bother you. I won't even ask one question. Thank you so very much for allowing us to return.
We just want to help you in any way we can. You just tell us what you want us to do.
I don't know if anyone can ever help me again. I guess the past molds the future. What time did you say your carriage was leaving for La Habra?
About 10 o'clock tonight, madame.
Oh, we got plenty of time to finish my story. Let's have a cup of tea.
Oh, merci, madame. Thank you.
The people in these parts would die if they knew the real truth about the master and me.
Ah, madame, what is the truth? He was your lover. I mean, you were his mistress, and
And never mind. I can see you don't understand this country. You have no idea how things are here, do you?
I guess not. I know a few things, but I did not mean to be disrespectful. After all, he was the president of this country.
That's right. And so, how do you see him?
How do I see him? I don't understand.
What do you think of him? What do you see?
Oh, no, I understand. You mean when I write about him?
No, I mean, do you see him as a person? Do you see him as a saint? Do you see him as a hypocrite?
Oh, I see what you mean. I definitely do not see him as a saint.
Well then, how do you see him?
As a man. Yes, madame. I see him as a man who is a member of the human race. Who did many great things, but could have, must have made some mistakes.
Of course you do, monsieur. Now, are you sure you do not see him as a person who could never do anything wrong? Who could never fall in love with someone like me?
Oh, madame. He was a human being, a man.
Are you familiar with the things he wrote? If you are, then you could never believe that he would have anything to do with a slave. Why, his writings about us as human beings was so different than what he really knew as a fact. Yes, sir, he was afraid to tell about his real feelings. Have you ever read what he said about mixed blood?
No, I don't think so, madame.
Well, I'm sure you haven't. Because if you had, you would have remembered. It is not easy to forget.
Oui, madame.
Did you know that they made it a donkey with a horse and they came up with a mulatto?
Mulatto, madame? I thought that would produce a mule.
Ah, monsieur. So you do know some things. But did you know he considered me a mulatto? His calculations on the mulatto dealt with how many times we had to mix our colored blood with your white blood in order to become white. White is the absence of color. Who wants to be colorless anyway?
But madame, I don't understand. I mean, mixed white blood? I thought all blood was red.
Ah, well, you take your time. Perhaps you understand how he used to think. We were just another animal for them to use any way they wanted. They could sell us to another plantation, just like a bunch of chickens, hogs. However, the mule was treated better than us. Oh, much, much better than we were.
But madame, how could you love him? I mean, I've read many of the things he wrote. That is why I wondered about you and him.
Oh, monsieur, he was my first love. He was my only love. He upset my insides. He introduced me to feelings I never knew I had.
And you were the first woman I ever saw.
What?
Nothing.
I was free in your country, monsieur.
Then why did you leave?
Master Jefferson begged me to return with him. My brother James told me that I would be a slave again if I left Paris. But he didn't know I was already carrying my first baby, Thomas's baby. He promised me that if I returned to America with him, he would give me his freedom, my freedom, and our baby would be free. And I believed him.
Oh, you mean he didn't keep his word?
Couldn't stay out of my cabin on our return to this country. He was so attentive and concerned about my sickness. And each time that the ship bounced from side to side, he was right there. So kind and gentle and loving. He was that way while we were in Paris, too. I wanted to be with him every minute. And he wanted to be with me. Actually, he was free in your country, too.
Yeah. He seemed so stiff and proper. How could he have been a good lover?
He was always warm and kind to me. He fell in love with me the moment he saw me, or so he said. He was wonderful to me in Paris. I had no other lovers in Paris or any other time than Thomas, just Thomas. He was so jealous. Well, once we traveled to another country, and he insisted that I stay with a friend of his, and he sent me a letter almost every day.
I know, madame. You don't remember me, do you?
Remember you? What? Why? Why should I remember you?
Madame, forgive me. I used to bring you mail to your chambers. I ran all of your errands.
You were in Paris when I was there. Oh, you were such a nice young boy.
You did notice me. When my father drove the carriages for you, I sat by his side and I looked into your beautiful face every chance I got. When I carried your letters and packages to your room, I used to pretend.
I thought you wanted to know about my life with Master Jefferson.
Sorry, madam. I am interested in your life with President Jefferson. Did you save any of his letters?
Did I save any of his letters? Perhaps. Were these the letters you were talking about?
Oui, madame. Perhaps they are. I'm so glad you still have them.
Well, then they have to go into the fire. Why, monsieur? Did you think that I would give them to you?
Madame, why did you do that? There's your proof going up in smoke.
Proof? I don't need proof. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I don't care what they believe. Even if they read the letters, nothing would change. They'll make it sound like whatever they want it to be. Thomas told me to destroy those letters long ago, and I didn't want to.
But what about history?
History? Whose history? Not my history. They will write or tell the story their way. You can be sure of that.
I've got to go get the rest of my things. Excuse me.
And wipe your feet. I hate muddy boots. How many times did I remove his boots? He always tried to wipe mud off the floor before he entered this cabin, but he knew how much I hated anybody tracking mud into this here place. Now, he used to tell children they had to be careful because they knew how perfect their mama liked things to look. He was so good with the children. He was a perfect father. He had escaped from that other world. He was a different person when he was here. Different than the rest of the world believed him to be. He was never too tired to help with the children, to help with their studies, and to have his brains. He loved them, and he always said they must be properly educated.
Did he teach the children like he taught you?
Oh, yes. Well, perhaps better. I mean, don't forget they had some of his brains, too. And he knew a lot about so many things. And he spent many hours transferring his knowledge to them. And I would just sit by with my knitting, or my mending, and comfortably watch and learn as he lovingly, patiently molded them into what they are today. And later, after he read them a story and tucked them into their bed, then he'd return to me. And we'd sit in front of the crackling fire, sip a glass of warm wine, and just quietly snuggle together on the down-filled quilt I made for us. He gently, carefully stroked my body from top to bottom. Each spot was always covered with his warm kisses. I was always afraid that one of the children would wake and see us, but he never seemed to worry about that, and it never happened. Oh, my, Shaw for Tom. Oliver, tell everything.
Madame, what about the children? It's said that one of them looks so much like the president, he was called President Tom. Madam, please, come now. Jason, come here and help me.
Oh my God, look now what you've done. Oh, you've gone and upset her so much she's having another coughing spell.
Fermez les bouches. I mean, shut your mouth. Let's just try to help her.
I'm sorry, monsieur. I just can't help it. It just happens sometimes when I think of the past.
No, madame. It is I who am sorry.
You wanted to know about the children.
Never mind, madame. I don't want you to have another spell. That's all right.
No, monsieur. You asked about the children.
Are you sure you can talk about it now?
Yes, I think so.
I just wondered, how many children?
How many children did I give birth to, or how many had his blood, or what is it that you are asking, young man?
Oui, madame.
Well, let's see. Let's just say there was more than one. Actually, about 7. 5 live births, but I tell you about the 2. Well, I know it's a terrible thing, but the 2 I guess I favor the most. Esther and Madison.
No girls?
Funny you should bring that up today. I thought about the children. I cried myself to sleep last night, but there was only one girl, Harriet.
Oh, I'm sorry if I caused you to feel sad. Why, I'd lay down my life for you. Can you forgive me?
You stop that crying. I know you didn't mean to hurt me. Come on now. Stop it. I forgive you.
Merci, madame. Thank you so very much. I will do better. I'm just trying to write this as truthfully as possible. People have distorted it so...
Truthfully, no. Truth. No matter what I say, no matter how your paper allows you to write it, do you really think it'll change the way anyone sees my life?
Perhaps.
You sit down there in that rock. If you rock a little bit, it'll help you. Rocking can help you forget a lot and pretend about a lot of things. That's it. You just rock your sorrows, your fears, your loneliness away. Yes, sir. We spent many a time just sitting next to each other, just rocking. Never said a word. We didn't need to say anything. The movement of these old rockers in our bodies did all the talking.
Thank you, madame. I'm beginning to feel better. There is something to this rocking movement. Yes, madame.
Oh my. All those beautiful little babies. I sure do miss my boys. You want to know about our children? Now Tom has kept his word. He let Tom, our firstborn, become part of the white world. And then he made it possible for Beverly and for Harriet to enter that world when they came of age. However, I dreamed about Esther and Madison last night. I dream about them quite often now. I pray for them all the time, because you never know about life, you know?
Do you ever hear from them? Do you know where they are?
No. I know they're fine. They can work. They're not afraid of hard work. We've always worked. Madison can fix things. But Eston loves his violin. But you should have seen him when his daddy bought him that violin. He just played that thing night and day. He sure made a beautiful sound, sometimes late into the night.
Pardon me. Who taught him how to play? President Jefferson?
Well, of course, who else? Sometimes late into the night, you could hear Eston slide his fingers across those strings, and the sound would be ever so soft and sweet. Oh, my Eston really loves music. He's somewhere playing his music right now, I bet. But now Madison used to steal that violin from Eston. I mean, he really plays as well, if not better than his brother. He didn't get the breaks like Eston.
They were both musical?
Well, he taught himself how to play that pianoforte over there.
Who, Eston?
No, Madison.
Oh.
He was one of the best carpenters in this here place for miles, too. But I'm not sure where he's gone.
Perhaps he's right here in Virginia.
Perhaps. I sure hope he's doing fine, because he had such a short temper.
What do you mean?
Well, he just couldn't stay out of trouble. Everybody here knew how much he hated this place. I told him he should leave, but somebody killed him, or he killed somebody. He was my favorite, though. I knew it was going to be hard on him, because he was the darkest.
What does that have to do with anything?
You just don't understand. I can't believe you don't know how these people think. That child's real good looking. Has his daddy's keen nose, slick mouth, green eyes, and bright hair. But he's the darkest. It's all that mixed up blood. It's all those fights, the scars. But what? You would have thought he'd been beaten by the master's strap. That's one thing. That is one thing Thomas made sure none of my children has ever gone under the strap. No, sir. He knew I would kill him if that ever happened. Are you all right, boy?
Yes, ma'am. I wish I'd had a mother like you.
Where's your mother, boy?
She and my father left me on the street.
Left you on the street?
Yes, ma'am. Guess I was about 8 or 9 years old. We went to town one day to get supplies, and they told me to sit on one of the large rocks and wait until they came back for me. Well, I waited and waited. When it got dark, I decided to go looking for them, but they were nowhere in sight.
Didn't have the sense enough to know that they'd left him.
I used to look for them every day.
Poor little thing. Well, then who raised you, boy?
Well, me. I had to do it all by myself.
All alone.
Yes, ma'am. The streets of London taught me how to live, and that's why I draw.
Why?
Well, at the end of each day, I'd sit on the side of the road and try to draw my life.
Draw your life.
Yes, ma'am. I always managed to find or steal a piece of paper and a pencil or something.
Steal.
Well, yes, ma'am. That was the only way I could survive. At the end of the day, I'd find a corner and draw something about that day. If I had enough paper, I'd draw the things that happened that day, all the things that happened that day. I started to draw street scenes, but that was too hard, and I never quite had enough paper to fit it all in, yeah? I mean, there was a girl selling flowers, men selling bread, boys shining shoes, people trying to sell the vegetables they brought in from their farms. It was just too much, so I decided to concentrate on drawing the faces. Faces I thought were interesting. And as I studied those faces, I tried to imagine what their lives were like. Was it a happy face? Were they hungry even though they had bundles of fresh bread that I would give my eye to for just one loaf? Were they too cold, too hot, kind, mean, all sorts of faces?
And what did you find, sir? Were there many differences? Could you tell their lives just by studying their faces?
Could I tell about their lives just by studying their faces? I think I was able to capture a moment. Because I would see most of the same people every day after day. So I had lots of time to study. There were many who looked the same day after day, and I think I was able to capture their souls.
Stop right there. Capture their souls. Can't believe what I'm hearing.
Well, now, please don't misunderstand me, ma'am. I'm not talking about deep things. Sometimes a person's whole life is portrayed by the look of their face, that's all. I could not read or write, but I could draw, and the things I saw, that's what I meant by their souls.
What do you draw the most? Kind faces, faces of good people or bad people? Or...
Which did I draw the most of?
Yes, Jason. Were there more nice people than mean people?
Well, I'm not sure. I guess there were more who were mean to me.
You must remember that he was a street urchin. He had no home, family, or anything to call his own. He probably stole many pieces of bread in order to
survive. It was a matter of survival, ma'am. Never did see the face of my mother or my father again, no.
No, I do understand. I understand about trying to survive. Oh, yes, sir. I can tell you something about a person's life by studying their face. You can always tell something about some people, too, just by the way they walk. Well, enough about that. I hope Madison is doing better than you did. At least he was raised with a roof over his head and a family who loved him.
Yes, ma'am, he certainly must be doing better than I was. He had some of the main ingredients of life, love and a place to live.
You had the right color skin. Enough about you. My Madison. One night I woke from a sound sleep and I thought I heard something. I quietly began to move around this here cabin, hoping no one had broken in. And as I moved about, I got closer to the sound. And it was coming from Madison's corner. His body was shaking all over. I could hear a sniffling sound coming from his lips. I just gently sat on the side of his bed. I could tell he was softly crying so as not to wake anybody. I touched his bag and he quickly jerked away. I gently put my arms around him. And I pulled him into my lap and brought his little wet head into my chest. And I don't know how long we sat there rocking and crying, just this poor little fellow. I tried to take his hurt into my body. Lord knows I've had my share of hurt, but I'd do anything for my children. Madison must have cried all his hurt out that night. We never spoke of it, and I never saw him drop another tear ever again. He was about 12 years old then, and something happened that night that must have liberated me. But one day when he was out chopping wood, he nearly chopped his right thumb just off. I was sitting right next to him picking up some logs, and he let out a real soft sound. Squeak. And that's the only reason I even knew about it. he just picked up some leaves and wrapped it around his thumb as the blood came spurting out. And I rushed around to get him a clean wet cloth or something, and he grabbed hold of my hand, wrapped his thumb with it, and he just went on shopping. Went on shopping the rest of those old logs like nothing had happened. He just held everything inside. I told him one day he'd die by just doing that. He said, sometimes I had to hear in my mind, as if for the first time, he said he was already dead. He said he was already dead. That there wasn't no reason to live in this here place. Every time I think of Madison, my heart feels like someone is sticking an old rusty knife in it and turning it around and around. I always worried about him more than Eston. Eston can always pass. He's probably doing that right now.
What are you doing? If there are more letters and things done to the children, I'd like to see them. You keep destroying proof.
Destroying proof? I don't care about proving anything to anybody. Me and my children are the living proof.
But, Madame, history. I could have printed some of those things Mr. Jefferson wrote to you in his letters, or things to the children.
Print his words of love to me in your paper? What makes you think anyone would really think he wrote those letters? Or that our children really exist? History. His story. No, sir, you don't know these people around here. You don't know how small their minds are. Why don't you know that there are so many of them out there? They're passing for white. If the truth ever be known about all these people around here got some African blood in them. No, sir. They don't want no proof. They don't want the truth. And Mama was right. Take no use in trying to do something about things you can't do nothing about. And you can't change these people.
I don't believe that.
I don't really care what you believe. And I'm getting too tired and thirsty to think about it. Would you like a glass of lemonade?
Merci, Madame.
Come on, Jason, put that pencil down. You just as well taste the seal lemonade. It's just like mine.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I've always thought about how Thomas mingled with kings, how he helped form and change and mold this part of the world, and yet it was me who knew his true inner thoughts. It was me he came to when he was upset or worried about something. It was me who heard his speeches before all these other people in this newly formed government. Each time he was thrown from his favorite mare, it was me who nursed him back to health. It was me he came to. Each time he felt sad or lonely or downhearted, it was me he sent for. It was me who knew when his time was ending. He was always given to deep thinking. He couldn't help trying to figure out stuff like, well, like the time when he said to me, loved one. But he always called me that when we were alone, loved one. Loved one, what would you do if you were free? Well, I stopped what I was doing. Oh, let me see, what was I doing? Okay, I was shucking some corn. I was trying to get supper ready.
Shucking some corn? How do you do that?
You just pull off the husk. Anyway, I guess I took too long to answer because he yelled at me. Sally Hemmings, he called me. He only called me that. He was vexed at me. What would you do if you were free? Where would you go? How would you live? How would you eat?
They must have been worried about you.
Well, I started to cough because I was coughing. I was nervous, as you already saw today. And I wanted to answer right away, but I knew I'd better think before I said anything. Because I'd never seen him quite like this before. And I could tell he was upset about something, but I didn't know what was so wrong. So I said, if I was free from what? Do you mean if I was free from you? And he looked at me, and the anger began to leave his face. I started to walk back and forth. I never want to be away from you, I said. Never. I want to be near you every minute of the day. I want to feel you and taste you and smell you and have you hold me. I want to melt into every part of you, become all of you. I'd be unhappy and scared, sad. If I were free of you, I'd be miserable. I started to cry. He rushed over to me and picked me up and began to smother me with his wet kisses. And I returned his kisses and tasted the soft and Oh, tears that were falling from his eyes into the corner of his mouth.
Oh, Madame, he loved you so very much. Many times after my father brought you back to the hotel, I would stand outside your door and put my nose as close as possible to the keyhole just to smell your scent. How could he help but love you? You were so young and so beautiful.
Later that evening, as we lay next to each other on that narrow bed, he explained to me that he was afraid. He was afraid for the first time in his life, and things were changing so fast. He wondered what would happen to me and the children when he was gone. He said there would come a time when I might have to go out on my own and try to take care of myself, and it would be hard for us with our skin color. And people would not know where we fit in. Were we whiter? And I just, my fingers over his lips, because I didn't want to think about it right then. I felt so at ease and good until, well, it's just the way we always felt after we made love. He got out of bed, just stood there buck naked, just staring at me. Oh, my child. Oh, my child, what will you do when I'm gone? Who will take care of you? And finally, I started to understand what he was saying.
Please, ma'am. What happened next?
Well, I got out of bed. I gave him his clothes, and I decided to make a cup of tea. I figured that if we were going to have a talk about serious things, well, we better have a good cup of tea to help us think. And he sat on his rocker, and he put his elbows on his knees, head between his hands. We added more logs to the fire, because I was sure he was going to need it. I told him to put on his clothes before he caught his death. He looked so sad. I kind of knew what he might be worried about. I know most of the masters had taken what they thought were their rights. Slave women would have those half-white babies in their living band, couldn't say nothing about it. Those babies had a different colored skin than any of the other children. Some of our children were dark brown, light brown, some were real high yellow. In fact, some looked like their masters, just like their masters. Sometimes those high yellow ones would jump over the room with somebody who looked just like them, and their children would look just like the people in the big house. Whenever they'd play together, why, you could tell. Couldn't tell one from the other. Except for their clothes.
Well, now that explains a lot of things. I have some drawings of some people in London that I couldn't figure out. Now their skin was the same color as mine, but the hair and the nose didn't match mine, nor the rest of the people that we were hanging out with. And what?
No one is interested in your story. Please continue.
Thomas must have been thinking about Eston. Eston was the spitting image of him. He needn't have worried about Eston. He should have been worrying about Madison. Well, I decided to try to help him understand right there what his slaves had done for him. I turned to him and I
Eston
said,
was the same color.
Master Jefferson. That's what I called him when I was angry with him. Did you ever think about what we done for you? Well, honey, we shared our African cultural traits with you. We cooked your food, and you grew to like it our way. We cleaned your houses, washed your clothes, combed your hair. Now, did you ever think about the way we did it? We did it the way we wanted to, and you got used to it. Our way. We birthed, delivered, suckled, bathed, and fed your babies. And then those babies were more ours than yours. You started to teach them differently. But you don't know how many times we turned those babies away once they was grown. Those grandchildren of yours in the big house, how many of them have I suckled, huh? A baby never forgets the first tit it lays its lips on. That's its food. That's what helps it stay alive. Well, he started towards the door, and I ran after him, because I was fired up now. I was going to tell him everything, whether he wanted to hear it or not. And I tugged at his arm, and I spun him around. Why, you don't have to worry about us making it in this here world. We could do anything if we had a chance. That's what's wrong with your people. You know, they never admit we were smart enough to think for ourselves and become part of this nation. Just think, where would you have been if we hadn't cleared your land, huh? Yeah, this stolen land has planted your crops, built your houses, roads, stables. We are hard workers. There ain't nothing lazy about us. We learned your language. Did everything to make you look successful. That's funny, isn't it? All the time, you thought you were taking care of us. Oh, but mama, you had it wrong. You had it all wrong, all the time, we was taking care of you all.
Blimey, you really told him off, eh?
Yeah, what did he say?
Nothing. He didn't say say nothing. Just stood there. And he stared at me for a long time with those vacant eyes. And then he took his coat and hat off the peg. He slowly put them on and opened the door. And he turned around. He looked at me just one more time. And then he walked out. And he slammed that door right behind him. I thought this whole cabin was going to fall down. I stared at that door for a long time. I felt strange. 10 feet tall, excited, refreshed, relieved, strong, proud of myself. I'm proud to be a strong African woman.
What did he say the next time he returned?
He never returned to this cabin again. He took to his bed shortly after that. I went about my duties in the big house every day. I could tell he was failing, but I couldn't say anything to him since his oldest daughter, Martha, was there helping him. She and me never did get along. She knew she was related to some of Mama's children, but she must have thought she was related to me too, because Mama never told her about the sailor, my real daddy. And of course...
Well, why should you tell her anything, the old witch?
Jason, stop it. Aren't you ever going to learn not to interrupt people? Sorry, madam.
Anyway, like I said, I never told her nothing about the sailor. And one evening, just about this time, when the twilight was setting in and I drank in the last orange golden rays of the setting sun, I felt this chill go up and down my spine. It had been a hot, sultry 4th of July day and a warm night. The clock in the cabin had struck 7 times. As it did, my head just began to swing back and forth like a pendulum on that old clock. With each vibrating peal of that chimes, it just made my heart feel as if someone was scraping across it with a notched, hollow brass tube. And at that same moment, the coldest breeze just covered me from head to foot. And it caused me to shiver like one does when you jump into the pond on an early, icy winter's morning. And I slowly got out of my chair. I went inside and built a big fire in this here fireplace. I just paced the floor just a few minutes. And I decided that the best thing I could do was to just warm it up and turn in for the night. And I'd just begun to remove my clothing when this loud knock came at the door. I rushed to the door. I was half dressed. My heart was pounding loud in my ears, and I quickly opened the door. And there, to my surprise, stood Miss Martha. She looked pretty upset.
Papa wants you to come quick, gal. Don't know why he insisted on me coming for you. Everyone's doing a good job. Don't need you.
I turned around quickly and put my dress back on. I began to smooth my hair, and she grabbed my arm and she said, "No need to prep. Hurry, gal." I didn't say nothing. I just rushed out that door and climbed into his special carriage. Martha chatted all the way there. She really hated me, but I tried to just listen and ignore anything mean she said. When I walked into his room, it was so dark. I pulled the drapes open and I let in the last bit of setting sun, but I was so pale. I opened the balcony door to let out the nasty smell of death. He stretched his feeble, crooked hand out to me and said something I couldn't understand. It was just so faint. So I ran over to him, and he tried to squeeze my hand.
Come closer to me, loved one.
I just crawled into his bed, and I snuggled against his feverish body. I began to kiss his gaunt, wrinkled face. I tried to smooth his white hair back from his forehead. It was just so down to the beads of perspiration. But I couldn't stop the tears falling from my eyes as I looked at him. And I remembered how he held me so long ago when Mama and I stumbled into his house on that stormy winter's day. I don't know how long I lay there. But every often he'd just say something in his poor raspy voice.
free public education. Do you love me, Sally? All men are created equal. Sally, my Sally, I love you so.
I tried to quiet.
Where are the children? Please forgive me, loved one. Sally, do you love me?
Yes, I answered him each time, yes. I don't think he ever heard me. I think he was making his journey to the other side. And finally, he just heaved a loud, deep, heavy sigh. His body shook for a moment.
Oh, God, he was a goner.
And then there was this strange sound of silence. He was perfectly still. Everything was still. There was no sound, no wind, no birds, just the deafening sound of silence. I don't know how long I lay there, waiting, hoping, not wanting to face reality. Finally, I got out of the bed. I noticed the sun was beginning to rise. His face looked so calm and relaxed. He almost looked as if he was smiling. I stared so hard at that face, trying to remember him without those wrinkles. Trying to remember those sparkling blue eyes. That wild crop of red hair he had when I first saw him. My heart just filled with tears as I pulled the sheet over his face and I straightened my clothes and I turned around. And there, to my surprise, was Martha, sitting in his big chair.
Sacre bleu.
She walked over to the bed and pulled the sheet back and stared at him for a long time. And finally, she turned to me. She put her arms around my shoulders. We cried together. We were in accord for the first time in our lives. And it was then that our lives became sealed together.
But yeah, why then weren't you at the funeral?